is very relevant for all of us, all those who have a stake in agriculture, to more about agricultural marketing reforms. So with this brief introduction, I shall start presenting this topic. So first of all, I request all of us to think for a minute what we understand by marketing reforms. What is your understanding? What are the salient features of these reforms? How it will impact agriculture in the state and in the country? What are the preconditions or requirements for the success of these reforms? Because this is a status check. I'll pause for 1 minute. You please think about what is your understanding on these questions. What we understand by marketing reforms? What are all the salient features of these reforms? How it will impact agriculture in the state as well as in the country? And what are all the preconditions or requirements for success of these reforms? Because if it is a live class, we would have interacted. Since it is a webinar, so I leave it to you to think about these questions. Okay, hope let us proceed. You might have some ideas about the marketing reforms by now. Now, these reforms were described in various newspapers and various economic commentators like this. These reforms are a game changer in the agricultural marketing sector. These reforms have far-reaching consequences for agricultural marketing. And also, some papers have reported finally the government has bitten the bullet. So this is how the media and the economists and all commented on these reforms. Now, so these reforms are part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan of the Government of India, which seeks to liberalizing the regulatory system in agricultural produce market, then increasing the competitiveness in agriculture sector, and also to enhance the income of the farmers. These are all at least the stated objectives of these reforms by the Government of India. Now, I am showing a data which was published very recently in as on 21/8/2020. This is the area zone between 1920 and 2021 for various crops in the Kharif season. So you could see here the difference also given here in the last column. Rice area increased by 11%, pulses 6%, arhar 7%, moong bean, that is green gram 14%, and ragi 53%, oil seeds 14%, and groundnuts 39%. Now, I put a simple question for all of us to think whether this increase in area, because we got good monsoon across the country and the crop production was very good, area increased, and it is likely to enhance the production also throughout the country, including our states. So the question is how this increased production, because every farmer is going to get good yield, whether it will benefit the farmers. That is the question. So what would be the impact of this higher production? So I also again give you half a minute time. So what would be the implication of this increased production? So because all this as stakeholders of farmers and agriculture sector, we always want to increase the production. So now with our technologies, with our scientific efforts and also good monsoon, this year we are going to get a good yield because area coverage is very high. Now you please think how this is going to impact the production. Okay, now let us move. So before actually going to the reforms, I think I'll tell you in one or two slides a little economics to understand the reforms better. Because as you know, when you recommend certain pesticides, the background knowledge will be always helpful. For example, if you say you know whether it is a systemic pesticide or a contact pesticide, what is its mode of action, those kind of things you know when you recommend a pesticide. Similarly, when we discuss some of the economic reforms, it is always better to have some basic idea about economics. I think these two or three slides which I am going to present, it's all you know, you already studied, just a refreshment of your earlier knowledge. So we know farmers' income is gross return minus cost of production. This is the very simple identity everyone knows. Okay. Now the gross return, how do you get the gross return? It is the output into price. So you produce more, you should also get more price, then only you get a more return. Then similarly, cost of production, you have you use input and there are the price of input. Both will determine your cost of production. So you should get high gross return and less cost of production. So now this identity teaches increase the gross return and reduce the cost of production. So this is our objective. So whenever we want to talk about increasing farmers' income, because nowadays we talk lot about increasing farmers' income, we should always keep it in our mind. So first is the output we have to increase, we have to get good price, we have to reduce the input use, and also the price of input should also be reasonable. So all these four factors combinedly determine the income, not alone increasing production or reducing input like that. So our topic today is related to price of output. That is the most important thing. Because we all along talked about output, technology, etc. Also input, price of input, etc. But today's topic of marketing is related to price of output. Okay. Now again I am taking you to the table which I have shown in the first slide. That is for example, groundnut. Groundnut sowing 19, 20, 35 lakh tonnes, 2020, 50 lakh tonnes. That means nearly 40% increase in the groundnut area. So definitely groundnut production is also going to increase. So how increased production, which we in economics we call supply, increased supply of groundnut will impact the price. To understand this, we need to know little economics, which everyone has already studied, just for your refreshment. So we say this is the supply. So we have here this is 36 lakh tonnes. So this is represented by this curve. Now how the price will be determined? Price is also determined by the demand for groundnut. So supply of groundnut is there. What is the demand? Demand where from it comes? From oil industries for domestic consumption, etc. No, from this demand. So both the supply and demand together will determine the price. For example, in the 1920, price of groundnut was 8,700 rupees per quintal in the last year. Because we assume here entire production in the last year is there is a equal demand, and then the price is determined at 8,700 rupees. So what will happen to this year 2020? We already know 40% increase in the area. Now supply is going to increase by 50 lakh tonnes. So increasing production or increasing supply is always shown by downward shift of the supply curve. So when supply curve shifts downwards and the demand is same, what will happen to the price? Now price comes down from P1 to it comes down to P2. Suppose supply increases further, then again the price comes down. This is the mechanism how price is determined. So increased production or increased supply, whether it will result in increased price, that is also important to realize income for the farmers. Now, okay, we have seen, this is the last graph we have seen. So when supply is increasing from S1 to 2, 36 lakh tonnes to 50 lakh tonnes, price comes down. Now how to stabilize this price or how to increase the price? Because unless farmers get more price, they will not get benefited. So for this, we have to increase the demand. So when the demand also increases, as supply increases, demand should also increases. Then we will get the same price like last year. Now the question is, the very pertinent question here is how to increase demand. That is the most important question here. Now we will discuss that, how to increase the demand or how the excess supply could benefit the farmer. This is the question. So excess supply should be diverted, or we have to create more demand. We have to create new demand to avoid crashing of prices. So for example, one way of avoiding crashing of prices is to access to bigger markets. We have to expand our markets. We might be producing groundnut in Tamil Nadu and selling in Tamil Nadu. We have to go in for other states. So for example, each box here represents a particular state or a particular region or a particular district where you produce and sell. So likewise, countries consists of several markets. So I have shown here, for example, here 6 markets. Now the borders of these markets should vanish and become a big mega size market like the orange shaded area. So the borders of the market should vanish. This is one important thing, accessing bigger markets. Second is processing and value addition. So how processing and value addition will help increasing demand? Because we know when you store these perishables, we have to store more so that we can sell it in a staggered way, and also it gives value addition, etc. So the second important thing here to tackle the excess production, excess supply is processing and value addition. Third is exports. So excess supply should be siphoned off from our country to other countries where there is demand. But all these things, all said and done, it's not very easy. So this is in this direction we need to move. We have to go for bigger markets. We have to value added products. We also promote exports so that the prices of commodities are maintained or we get more prices. Now, in the previous slide, we said these are all in the left side, accessing big markets, processing, exports, all these things. But as I said, this is not very easy. There are constraints for doing this. So how we can take, what are all the constraints? Barriers to interstate and intrastate trade. There are small markets without any integration. Then regulation, production, supply, distribution, and trade of essential commodities. All of you know that the provisions of the Essential Commodities Act, this act actually restrict or regulate the movement of agricultural commodities across the state borders, or sometimes in the event of price rise or other contingencies, government can intervene in the agricultural produce market to bring down the price. This is one important constraint. Second is quality standards. We said about export markets, which are very quality sensitive. Then online trading is in a very nascent stage, because online trading provides a nationwide nationwide markets. Then contract farming. Contract farming we need to promote because it has not picked up in the earlier attempts because of several constraints. But contract farming, once the impediments are removed, it will assure better price or assured price to the farmers. Then also competitive production and processing. This is very, very important. Competitive production means we need to produce the same quantity and quality with a lesser price than other countries. Then only you can access the export market. If you produce at higher price and go to the export market to sell it, nobody will buy it because there are other countries which offer at the cheaper rates. So competitive production and processing also very important. So in the left hand side, I have given how the excess production we can make benefit to the farmers, like bigger markets, processing, export. But to achieve this, in the left hand side, there are certain constraints. Okay. Now, addressing these constraints, like this is the earlier slide, I have given the 6 constraints. The marketing reforms, we have to understand or we have to discuss the marketing reforms now in this perspective, under this background. With this background knowledge, we have to talk about marketing reforms. I think you are comfortable, you are with me. So, to address the above 6 constraints, Government of India promulgated 3 ordinances in June 2020, very recently, as part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, which seeks to liberalizing the regulatory system in agriculture produce market, increasing the competitiveness in agriculture sector, and also enhance the income of the farmers. These are all the stated objectives of these ordinance by the Government of India. Now, let us have a feel of the name of the ordinance, because we should know the names as people concerned with agriculture. We should also know the names of these 3 ordinances. First ordinance is called the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Ordinance. Second is the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Service Ordinance. Third is Essential Commodities Amendment Ordinance. All the 3 ordinances were promulgated in June 5, 2020. Also, along with this, there are certain other steps were taken by the government from 2016. So the reform process, even though it has got a fillip now from June, from quite some time, government is grappled to this issue and issued several directions. So these are all the earlier attempts by the government to reform the agriculture marketing. That is the Agriculture Produce and Livestock Contract Farming and Services Act 2018, then Agriculture Produce and Livestock Marketing Promotion and Facilitation Act 2017, and established the Electronic National Agricultural Market or ENAM in 2016. So all these 6 measures together we call reforms. So in the initial slide, I asked the question. So what we understand by marketing reforms? So marketing reforms actually initiated through these legal measures. So reforms cannot occur just through legislative measures alone. We have to execute it. We have to implement it. There are several steps before we can go for it. So, but this is what we call reforms. And with these legislative measures, we have started the reform process. First, here I will be limiting my discussion with the first 3 recent ordinance, because the earlier act, that APLM Act and the Produce and Livestock Marketing Act and the Contract Farming and Services Act in 18 and 2017, most of the provisions in these acts were subsumed in the recent acts. So it's enough we discussed the first 3 important legislative measures by the government. Okay, first one, the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Ordinance 2020. So what it aims at? So first is freedom of choice relating to sale and purchase of farmers' produce, which facilitate remunerative price through competitive alternate trading. So there are several words used here. The here means some words are very important. Choice relating to sale, because it's not very problem in Tamil Nadu, but in several other states you have to sell only in the APMC mandis. So now they are this ordinance aims to free them. They can uh, alternative trading channels. Here, alternative trading channels, they mean that even private markets can be established. So when there is a competition, the farmers get the competitive prices. So this is the most important objective of this FPTC ordinance. Second aim is to open up agriculture marketing outside notified. That it is related to the first one. So they want to open up agriculture marketing outside the notified mandis. Then freedom to interstate or intrastate trade for farmer or trader or electronic trading and transaction platform. So earlier several rules and regulations restricted this trade. So that has been now unregulated. Then payment to the farmers. Under this ordinance, traders who transact with the farmers shall make payment on the same day or within the maximum 3 working days. Then electronic trading and transaction platform. Any FPO or agriculture cooperative society may establish electronic trading platform for facilitating interstate or intrastate trade and commerce. This is a very important thing because already we have ENAM, a nationwide electronic market, but now under this ordinance, FPOs, because this is a very significant development because we all know that farmers, our small and marginal farmers, may not be able to sell through electronic trading unless they aggregate their produce, they farm into producer groups, and then sell in the. It will not be possible. It may not be feasible in the electronic trading. So even cooperative societies can also aggregate farmers for produce and sell in the electronic trading platform. Suppose all these objectives are fruitified, so you will have several electronic platforms, marketing platforms, which will create a healthy competition among the selling of produce. Then the guidelines for fair trade and practices. So the electronic trading platform shall prepare and implement guidelines regarding mode of trading, fees, technical parameters, including interoperability within the platforms. That's what I just mentioned. ENAM, trading platform by FPOs or cooperative societies. Then logistic arrangements, quality assessment, timely payment, dissemination of guidelines in language. So these are all the ordinance prescribe for fair trade practices. Then no market fee or cess or levy under the APMC Act or any other state law shall be levied on any farmer or trader or electronic trading and transaction trading and transaction platform for trade and commerce in scheduled farmers produce. So there is no market fee or cess. Then price information and market intelligence. The central government developed price information and market intelligence system for farmers produce and frame and a framework for dissemination of information. Then coming to the second, so these are all the major provisions under the first ordinance. Second ordinance is the Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services. So first is mainly about interstate trade and intrastate trade. This is mainly about contract farming. So when we say Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement, the agreement relates to a contract between parties. So national framework on framework on farming agreements that protects and empowers farmers to engage with agribusiness firms, processors, wholesalers, exporters, or large retailers. So our knowledge of contract farming is limited to some company coming and making some contract with the farmers and buying back. Here, the scope is very wide. So farmers or farmers association, they can enter into contract with agribusiness firms. They can enter into contract with processors, wholesalers, exporters, and large retailers. Here we mean maybe the supermarkets and other kind of large corporate retail centers. Then the underlying principle of the contract farming is to purchase crop at a certain price at the beginning of the season, transferring the risk of market unpredictability from the farmer to the corporate sponsor. This is the principle. The principle they say is, so when you make a contract at the beginning, you are in fact, in reality, you are transferring the risk from the farmer to the, because later on, so the price falls, he is bound to pay the price. The opposite also true, but most of the time nowadays, in the last few years, the price crash is the most problem in agriculture. Then it also have a written farming agreement. And regarding the agreement will also say about time of supply, quality, grade, standards, price, and such other matters. It also related to supply of farm services. So, for supply of farm services means, for example, some people are giving transplanting to paddy or some other farm services they can give. So, in these cases, the service providers can enter into contract with the farmers. Here, the very important thing is the responsibility of compliance. Once you made a contract, the responsibility of compliance rests with the sponsor or the farm service provider. So it is the responsibility is not with the farmer. Then rights of sharecroppers also protected. Then the minimum period of farming agreement. So when you make a contract or an agreement, it will be valid for one crop season or one production cycle of livestock, as the case may be, or the maximum period shall be 5 years. This is the period of farming agreement. Then quality standards. So here in these marketing reforms, a lot of importance has been given to quality of farm produce, because this is very important on two accounts. One is we need to protect our domestic population from food safety, food hygiene, and other things. Second, to access export markets also, quality standards are very, very important. The quality, grade and standards for pesticide residue, food safety standards, good farming practices, labor and social development standards also be adopted in the farming agreement. Then third party quality certification. The farming, so the agreement require mutually acceptable quality, grade and standards, monitored and certified during the process of cultivation or rearing in the case of animals, at the time of delivery by third party qualified assayers. So qualified assayers, this is because we need to imagine the size of the agriculture, size of the operation which we are talking about. So we have very large millions and millions of farmers, from which a government alone cannot make quality assaying for all the produces produced. So qualified assayers we need to develop with the standards, training, and other things. So this is very much important for the success of this agreement. Then model farming agreements. So the central government may issue necessary guidelines along with the model farming agreements. So state government or central government may say the various standards and quality norms for the marketing. But we have to follow these model farming agreements while dealing with the farmers as well as the service providers. Then fixation of price. This is a very, very important topic when we want to have a successful contract farming model. This has to be mentioned in the farming agreement, first point. Second is how the price is determined. First, a guaranteed price to be paid. Guaranteed price because already we have the minimum support price and all. Then the ordinance doesn't stop with that. They say an additional amount over and above the guaranteed price. Suppose the price goes higher. For example, higher means higher in comparison with the APMC price or the price in the electronic trading platform. Then they have to give the additional amount also. So these are all the benchmark. The APMC price or the electronic trading price are the benchmark price. So minimum guaranteed price plus an additional amount based on the prices in the APMC or the electronic trading platform. This is how the price is to be fixed. Then delivery of farm produce. So this is also important by the sponsor at the farm gate within the agreed time. Sponsor has to take the delivery of the goods. So it is the responsibility of the sponsor to ensure the timely acceptance. So before accepting delivery, he needs to inspect the quality. He needs to inspect the quality and make payment of agreed amounts. So mode of payment shall be prescribed by the state government. Now, exemption from other laws, because we have in our country several laws overlapping one another. So, as far as this contract farming ordinance is concerned, it shall the agreement under this ordinance shall be exempt from the application of any state act. So, this will override the provisions of other acts. This has got the primary application. So related to regulation of sale, purchase of farming produces. Primary stake is for the agreement under this ordinance. So anything in the Essential Commodities Act 1955 shall not be applicable to farming produce purchased under a farming agreement. This is also a very important provision. So you cannot invoke the provisions of ESA for nullifying the effect of the contract under this ordinance. Then this is another important provision under this ordinance, because we know many times they put into contract, farmers will enter into contract and something goes wrong or some loss happens, the farm or farm household will be taken away by the other party. To safeguard from this agreement says no agreement shall be entered into any transfer, including sale, lease and mortgage of the land or premises of the farmer, or raising any permanent structure or making any modification on the land or premises of the farmer. Suppose they make a provision for making some shed and other things for collecting and aggregating. The sponsor agreed to remove such a structure to restore the land to its original condition at his cost on the expiry of the agreement period. This is a very important provision to safeguard the interest of the farmers. If such a structure is not removed, the ownership of such a structure shall vest with the farmer after the expiry of the agreement. Then, linking the agreement with the credit or insurance. So when a farmer enter with a third party for this contract farming, they can also avail the facilities like insurance, credit under the scheme of the central government or state government has any schemes related to credit or insurance also built into this agreement. So a farming agreement may link it with insurance or credit under any scheme of the central government or state government or any financial service provider to ensure risk mitigation and flow of credit to the farmer or sponsor or both. Sponsor can also avail some credit facilities available to him. Then other parties in the agreement, an aggregator or farm service provider may become party to the farming agreement. So there is a farmer, there is a corporate buyer, in between FPOs and the farm service provider. Farm service provider means maybe a knowledge partner or some analytical services, etc. Those people can be brought under this agreement. Then alteration or termination of agreement. At any time after entering into an agreement, parties to such agreement may, with the mutual consent, alter or terminate such agreement for a reasonable cause. Then this is very enabling part of this contract farming law. There is a registration authority. It is not simply an agreement between the farmer and the sponsor. It has to be registered, like you register a deed for a land deed with the sub-registrar office. State government may notify a registration authority for registering farming agreements. The constitution, composition, powers and functions of the registration authority and the procedure for registration shall be prescribed by the state government. So we have to enable all these things to get the full benefit of these reforms. Then the third important reform measure is the Essential Commodities Amendment Ordinance 2020. So before the amendment in June 2020, ECA empowers the state to control the production, supply, trade and storage of certain commodities deemed to be essential, which include agricultural commodities. ECA also includes some other non-agriculture commodities also, but under the provision we have a lot of food commodities, agricultural and food commodities. It also empowers the state to control, to raid hoarders, confiscate stocks, cancel licensing agreements, and even imprison offenders. Thus, the Act controls the production, supply, distribution, trade, and commerce in certain commodities. So, it is a very strong Act. ECA 1955 is a very strong Act which has got a lot of provisions to control the production, supply, trade, everything of a commodity. And most of those commodities are agricultural commodities. Now, the present ordinance, the Amendment Ordinance 2020, it seeks to enhancing the income of farmers and liberalizing the regulatory system. So, liberalizing the regulatory system means it is a very stringent law, which is over-regulated. Now, they want to liberalizing the regulatory system while protecting the interest of the consumers as well. Because earlier, why it was very stringent was to protect the consumers. To when there is when there is some famines or high price rises, etc. Now the government has amended the ordinance to protect both the primarily to the interest of the farmers and also the interest of the consumers. Now deregulation under this now the amendment ordinance, deregulation of food items. Such as cereals, pulses, potato, onions, edible oil seeds and oils will be regulated. Now they are deregulated, but it will be regulated only under extraordinary circumstances such as war, famine, extraordinary price rise and natural calamity. Then liberalizing the stock limits. So under the ECA earlier, there is a limit for holding the stocks. Now that has also been deregulated. So regulating only if 100% increase in the retail price of horticultural produce, 50% increase in the retail price of non-perishable agricultural foodstuffs over the price prevailing immediately preceding 12 months or average retail price of last 5 years, whichever is lower. Only under these two circumstances, now under ECA you can regulate the stock holding. Then exemption to processors and exporters. The stock limit will not apply to processor or value chain participant. Who are all the value chain participants? Processing, those who process, those who package or store or transport, distribution. All these activities, all these functions are all the persons who are doing these activities are called value chain participants. So this stock limit mentioned earlier, this will not apply to these value chain actors. So provided they held overall ceiling of installed capacity within the overall ceiling of installed capacity of processing or the demand for export in the case of an exporter. Then applicability to public distribution system. So earlier when we started discussing this ECA amendment, I told you earlier it was very much on protecting the consumers. Now they also want to protect the farmers, but consumers' interest is also protected because through this clause in the ECA amendment. Under this clause, provisions of the ordinance regarding the regulation of food items and the imposition of stock limit will not apply to any government order relating to public distribution system. So PDS has got primary importance to protect the consumers. Then foreign investment. Sender hopes to increase private and foreign investment in cold storage facility and modernization of food supply chain. Adequate processing and storage facility will reduce wastage and increase income for farmers. So I think I want to little explain here. Earlier, why foreign investment are not coming means there is limit for holding the stock. With that limitation, many times big companies, corporates who want to do some processing or value addition activity, they will not be able to do because of that ECA provisions. So now that they have deregulated that stock holding, now they can buy within the provisions of this ordinance and they can do some higher level processing and export kind of activity. So because of that, government expects some foreign direct investment in the processing sector and also export sector. Now I have explained all the very basic features of all the three reforms, that is interstate trade, ordinance related to interstate trade, second is on the contract farming, third is liberalizing the ECA. But this is just a description of what is there in the ordinance. I have not said anything new, but we need to little bit analyze. So while beginning, I have shown you some economics, how whether overproduction will help the farmers. So if supply increases, price goes down, then we need to increase the demand. For increasing the demand, we need to have bigger markets, we need processing and value addition, we need exports. For that, some of the provisions of these ordinance will help addressing those constraints for increasing the demand. Again, I will say some of the salient features. Again, I will repeat in 3 or 4 slides what I have already presented in these 3 ordinance. Some key features. I will again show it here. So enabling features to expand the size of the market. So open up agriculture marketing outside notified mandis. So we have competitive alternative trading channels. This will expand the market. Also electronic trading. Electronic trading is a virtual trading which will expand the market for the FPOs and other actors. So the electronic trading and transaction platform, FPO for agriculture and also for agriculture cooperative societies, they can establish these platforms. Then interoperability with other platforms. So as of now, we have only this ENAM, but in future there will be many platforms, many such platforms. Then interoperability within these platforms are very crucial. Then the quality assessment. Quality has given a lot of importance, and in years to come or in the future, quality is the main important determinant in getting more prices, more export markets, processing and consumer demand. Everything largely depend on this quality. So these quality assessment provisions under these ordinance, they address the concerns of food safety and export markets. Then we have to know the government has to evolve this quality control regime by specifying quality grade standards of a farming produce. The state government, central government has to undertake this. Then third party quality certification. So assayers, quality assayers, about that I have already told. We need to train and generate large number of third party quality certification. Then logistics. Logistics is a very, very primitive stage in our country, especially for agriculture. So essential for domestic and export market development, both for export market development as well as domestic market development. Logistic development is very, very important, which includes cold chains and other a whole lot of infrastructure. Then price information and market intelligence. This is a very important area in TNAU. Cards, there is a demic cell which periodically forecasts prices, but we are the pioneers, but it's not very much prevalent in although we have some portals which displays the prices. Price intelligence and price information is we need to do a lot so that we develop efficient markets. Then linking the agreement with the credit and insurance. So credit and insurance is an enabling service for market development, value chain financing, value chain insurance. All these are very important for a healthy development of modern markets. Then registration authority we need to, I told you earlier, contracts need to be registered, for which a registration authority need to be developed. Then foreign investment. We need to attract more foreign investment, especially for market infrastructure like cold storage facilities and modernization of supply chain. So well-oiled, so seamless, they say seamless flow of goods and services. This is only possible through a modern supply chain infrastructure. Then finally, in 2 slides, I will conclude. The objective or intent of the ordinance are to reform the agricultural produce markets and to create one nation, one market for ensuring seamless flow of farm produce across the country without regulatory restrictions and excessive intermediation. Then creating alternative channels of marketing to farmers. By that, they mainly mean private markets. Create competition APMC markets to make price discovery efficient. Price discovery is a concept in which efficient prices are determined without some interventions in the market. So when markets are integrated, there are large number of buyers and sellers. You get efficient price discovery mechanism. This would increase the choice of farmers to sell their produce for better price, better price realization or price discovery. Then would ensure supply of food to the consumers at competitive prices. Both farmers and consumers going to get benefit by creating healthy competition among the agricultural marketing system. Then to attract private investment in agriculture market infrastructure development. So one nation, one market. So better price discovery, better returns to the farmers, and also consumers get produces at competitive prices, attracting private investment in agriculture markets. Then the ordinance throw open wide opportunities for FPOs in agriculture marketing by establishing of e-markets. Then finally, the proof of any law is in its implementation. So this is a very grand with very, very noble objectives and with grand design. A lot of provisions are made in this ordinance, but it's not as simple as we just see. A lot of things has to be done if you want to realize the full potential of this ordinance. There is a long way to go before the potential or intended benefits are realized by the farmers. Agriculture is a state subject. This is an important thing. The ordinances are made by the central government. So the implementation of the provisions of the ordinance in letter and spirit by the states is paramount in realizing the benefits. There is a coordinated efforts from the central and states in implementing the different various provisions of this ordinance. Then massive investment for required in market infrastructure to fulfill the vision of the one nation, one market. So with the current level of infrastructure and other facilities we have, the realizing the vision of one market, one nation is not very easy. So large number of investment, whether it is domestic investment from the private sector, domestic private sector, or from the FDI. foreign direct investment. We need to bring lot of investment in market infrastructure. Then investment in agricultural logistics need to be enhanced in a big way. So logistics is a very, very important weak area for market development. Logistic services has to be competitively developed. Then just like capital markets, we need software to capture the complexity of agriculture markets, and farmers needs to promote e-markets in a big way. E-trading, e-platforms are very much importance given in this ordinance, but for that, software support is very, very important. So we have these capital markets. Uh, Likewise, similar softwares need to be developed. So this is essential for real-time and reliable price discovery, connecting farmers, traders, and buyers, and physical distribution to fulfill orders. So these are all some of the challenges before implementing this. But by and large, these ordinance augur well for the development of agriculture markets in India. So with this, I conclude. Thank you. Thank you for your kind attention, and I also thank